All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Well, hello, Frankie. You ready to kick some ass in week 5 here, bro?
Oh, I'm so ready. I've never been more ready in my life for something ever than week 5 this year specifically. How about yourself, John?
I'm really ready. What are you drinking tonight, Frank?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Last episode, I dipped into a little bit of Buffalo Trace. Shout out Buffalo Trace, right? This week, or should I say this episode, I'm dabbling in some Weller Green, baby. Nothing better than a nice smooth bourbon just to take the edge off after a long, hard day of looking at fantasy football. So shout out to Weller. Hey, we're open to some new sponsors, baby. What about you, John? What are you drinking tonight, good sir?
Well, after a long, hard day of looking at you, I have to go to a little Woodford Reserve whiskey that I'm drinking out of my...
Whoa, time out. That mug is fucking... Please explain for those listening that don't get a chance to see this.
Yeah, those of you watching on YouTube at Frankly Fantasy Football, you can see I've got a Viking mug here. And it's not because I'm a huge Vikings fan, although I do love me some Justin Jefferson, little Jay Jetta, love him. This is my brother-in-law. I call him a Viking. He's Norwegian. He's a tall Viking of a man. I say it to his face. I hope he doesn't hear this because I don't want him to get too...
Shout out Alex.
Shout out to Alex Bue. Yeah, my sister married a Viking Steelers fan, so that's super fun. Thank God I love the guy because, man, coming into that, you're a Viking Steelers fan? Fuck off. Wonderful man. Love the guy. Shout out to Alex. Great chiropractor, too, by the way, in Hudson, Ohio. Guy is a stud.
I'll tell you what, I go there all the time, John, and it's funny. Like, they're not a sponsor for us guys. Like, don't worry. Like, we're just shouting them out because they actually do. Chiropractic Wellness Center of Hudson does a phenomenal job, guys. Totally has helped my wife's back and some of the digestion issues with some of the things they do from a holistic practice perspective. So if you're looking for somebody on the east side here in Ohio, check them out. Really, really good work. Really good work.
My sister and my brother-in-law run the practice, and it's impressive. It really is. He works on some MMA guys.
NFL?
He works on some NFL players. Yeah, really impressive, man.
Horses.
He does.
Right? He does.
He works on horses.
Pit bulls. Sure.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I don't know how he does that shit. Yeah. Well, I always ask him, I say, hey, so since you adjust horses, like that's why it's so easy to adjust me, right? Because, kind of a horse, right? Welcome to the show, everybody. Today we've got our week 5 starts and sits, our smash or pass. We're going to have a little conversation here. We're going to talk about it, see who we like this week, and see who we don't. We've had a pretty good track record, Frankie. I think you'll probably get into that. We like to call it our hit it and quit it.
I want you to hit it.
All right, Frankie, let's hit it and quit it right now, man. Who is your first start smash? See, I do this every time. I want to play it twice. I get excited too. I just like to hear it again. I'm a big dumb animal, aren't I, folks? Okay, who's your first smash? I know you love this guy. Tell me how you're going to smash his ass this week.
I'm going to smash his ass, John. I'm going to smash David Montgomery, baby. David Montgomery is lining up against that of the Carolina Panthers. And the reason why I love him this week is not only because the utilization that the Detroit Lions have been using him for, 32 carries last week. And when he's been healthy, he's been absolutely the bell cow. But what's interesting too is Carolina's rushing defense has actually been pretty bad. And to the tune of last week when they actually played the Minnesota Vikings, Alexander Mattison, to give you something to chew on here for a bit, actually did very, very well and had a really nice game. He ended up rushing the ball 17 times for 95 yards. And then he also ended up having 1 catch on 1 target. So what I'm getting at is David Montgomery, in my opinion, is much better of a running back than that of Alexander Mattison. And I only see David Montgomery carrying over. Now, he might not have 32 carries. That was crazy. But what I do think he'll have is over 20 touches at least. And he should be eclipsing right that 90-yard mark and should get you a tutty. So fire his ass up for a dream matchup, baby.
He is currently the number 9 running back on the season. He's scored in each of the 3 games that he's played. He missed a game in there the week before, but he's got 5 touchdowns in 3 weeks, man. I mean, yes, you absolutely have to play David Montgomery. Great matchup. That Carolina defense is miserable.
Miserable.
Absolutely ape shit. Good call, bro.
John, the next guy I want to talk about is Joe Mixon. Usually in prior years, he's been the guy that you always fire him up. This year, the Cincinnati Bengals have been very, very tough across the board to trust anybody on the offense. This week, I am putting my eggs in this basket of Joe Mixon, and I pray to God, John, he doesn't turn around and like start shooting pellet guns at me or something like that if I'm hunting for eggs in his yard. You're picking up what I'm putting down. But Joe Mixon, right, guys, he ended up having, if you think about his first 4 weeks, who's the defenses he's played against? Cleveland Browns, excellent defense. Baltimore Ravens, very good defense. The Los Angeles Rams, defensive front is very good. And then you have the Tennessee Titans defensive front, who's also not bad. Last week against the Titans, guys, he ended up having 14 carries for 67 yards, and they were getting their ass beat 27-3 by the Titans. Even in a poor game scripted game, he still produced 8 points in fantasy. This week, he's playing against the Arizona Cardinals at the Cardinals. I expect a massive week for Joe Mixon because of the injuries with Joe Burrow, some of the issues in the locker room that they're having today. And again, it's not like anything like massive, but there is some rumblings with Jamar Chase. We mentioned it last episode with him being just vocally just a little bit upset, not necessarily at anybody or anything other than he's open and he needs to get the ball. Right. And so I really think, John, with this type of matchup, they're not going to be playing that far behind the entire time. I love Joe Mixon running that clock out.
Now's the time to lean on him. I mean, let's learn from your previous mistakes here. If you're going to continue to play Joe Burrow, which they seem to be wanting to do, they already said he's going to play against Arizona this week. You got to lean on Joe Mixon here. What's really interesting with Joe Mixon is that I do think he's poised to pop here. You look at his stats; it's consistent. It's consistent as hell.
Totally.
You look at rushing attempts, 13, 13, 19, 14. Rushing yards, 56, 59, 65, 67. Extremely consistent. He's only got 1 touchdown in those 4 weeks. But yeah, they give him a little bit more play. They give him, get him out into space, maybe give him a couple receptions.
A better game script.
5 targets, 2 targets, 1 target. Better great game script. Lean on him more. Give him more volume. Get him closer to 20 touches. Let's just start playing that game. Then you can have that open up the passing game.
Totally.
I love it, man. Yeah, I love it. Joe Mixon, fire him up.
Joe Mixon, fire his ass up at Arizona. Guys, the next smash, and I ain't passing here. I'm talking about Devon Achane. Guys, this guy has been unfucking real the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks alone, he's over 75 fantasy football points in half PPR. That's absurd to even say out loud. Last week alone against a dominant Bills defense in Buffalo at Bills Mafia, he ended up having, I know we hit on it last episode, but I want to repeat it again because it was so incredible. 8 touches, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns, and brought in 3 of 5 targets for 19 yards. They are going in and playing, drumroll, the Giants. The shitbag Giants, the terrible, terrible Giants. What do I see happening? This is going to be an absolute bloodbath. I think Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, you name it, are going to run the score up. And with that being said, what happens to the running backs? They then take the load. I love this matchup. I love what Achane's doing. This is a week that you need to start him immediately. And if you don't feel comfortable, let me make you a little bit more comfortable. With Kenneth Walker, last game alone, John, Kenneth Walker is a brute of a running back, first and foremost. Secondly, he's the number 5 running back in fantasy football right now. But what he was able to do, he rushed the ball for 79 yards on 17 carries and also had a touchdown. He ended up having 14 points in half PPR. Guys, this game script is going to be very similar, except I see Devon Achane as a guy who is even more athletic than Kenneth Walker III. I love him. Fire his ass up.
The number 3 running back in fantasy football, Devon Achane. Yeah.
Wild.
Who else you got, bud?
John, here we go, baby. Hey, the guy that we said last episode and many episodes ago, take him with your last pick in your draft, and you won't be upset because the high side. Well, I'm going into Flames with the number 7 receiver on the year. So far in half PPR, I'm talking Nico Collins against that of the Atlanta Falcons. Guys, this is a matchup dream right now. And the reason being is because Atlanta is not a terrible team. Let me be crystal clear when I say this. Their defense isn't nearly as bad as what they were previous years. And their offense outside of the quarterback is not bad by any means. But what this means to me is CJ Stroud's going to have to throw the ball. And that I love. Because the Falcons have Bijan Robinson, they have Drake London, they have Tyler Algier. They're going to score they're going to score touchdowns. CJ Stroud is going to need to win this game on him. It's not going to be Dameon Pierce. And so the recipient of this is either going to be Tank Dell or it's going to be Nico Collins. And for me, man, I am firing up Nico Collins as not only a flex, but feel real cozy and comfy as my receiver too with Nico Collins this week. Guys, last week alone, he had 9 targets, caught 7 of them for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you might ask, who was that against? It was against a damn good defense in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they beat the shit out of them. Okay, beat the shit out of them. And so he was a focal point. John, I only see this carrying over. Love Nico Collins, fire his ass up.
I love it, man. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else I can say about Nico Collins that we haven't already said in these episodes this week. He's been fantastic. He looks great. He looks like a prototypical big receiver on the outside.
Yep.
And I love that. And you've got a quarterback now that can get him the ball and lasers. Lasers. I mean, he's really throwing good balls, man. I mean, it looks like something out of Madden. It just perfectly right where he needs to be. So yeah, fire up Nico Collins. Love it.
Love it. John, the next guy that we got on here is this one. And I'll tell you what, I think this is another dream matchup. We mentioned in the last episode, Brian Robinson, right, for the Thursday night game, right? That was awesome to a certain degree. Now, Breece Hall, this coming week on Sunday, I think is going to be dynamite. I think that against the Denver Broncos defense, they have been torched, they have been scrutinized, they have had 70 points put up against them and absolutely dominated on the ground. And Breece Hall, if you were going to plug and play him any week, it is this week. The reason being is because even against a really good Chiefs defense last Thursday, or was it last Thursday or Sunday? I can't remember. I'm losing track of time. Last week, whatever it was, Taylor Swift came into town and I lost my fucking mind. Okay. Don't blame me. Blame her. All right. So long story short, he ended up having 6 carries for 56 yards. 6 carries. I see him, if he gets even 12 touches, we're going to be in the 100-yard mark. No question about it against this specific defense. I actually might lean towards picking the Jets to win this game because I think that their defense can certainly halter that or at least stop that of the Denver Broncos. But more importantly, Zach Wilson looked very good against the Chiefs. Shout out to you, man. Shout out. It's about damn time. And Breece Hall is coming back. Like full-blown coming back. So, John, I love Breece Hall this week. Fire his ass up.
This needs to be a Breece Hall game. I mean, this is exactly where you're going to see his strengths to play into it. Exactly what Achane and Mostert did. Breaking those long plays, that's Breece Hall's game. Get him out in space, take off, see you later, break a couple tackles. Interestingly enough, the Broncos are favored by 2 at home in this game.
Yeah, that would be a game that I would actually be willing to take the Jets. Not anything heavy, but I really like their odds because of their defense. Their defense is very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, the last start, the last smash, the last hit it, baby, is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco at Minnesota, I think, is going to be excellent. Guys, Minnesota's defense, I love Brian Flores. It just hasn't been firing on all cylinders. Them losing Dalvin Tomlinson to the Browns, them losing Zadarius Smith to the Browns, them having a few injuries as well has caused issues for this defense. And now walk in the Chiefs. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be pissed off as hell at the way he performed and actually got outdueled by that of Zach Wilson. I think that they are going to pass the ball like crazy, get this score going, and then they're going to rely on that run game. And with that comes Isaiah Pacheco. And John, with what Isaiah Pacheco did last week against a very good Jets defense, he ended up having 20 carries, 115 yards, and 1 touchdown. He also hauled in 3 targets for 43 yards as well. 26.3 fantasy points in FPPR last week. The week prior, 14.8. He continues to increase. I love him. Start his ass this week.
Yeah, I mean, just the past 2 weeks, 15 carries, 20 carries. I mean, the guy's playing, he's scored in both of the last 2 weeks. He's finding his groove. They're finding his role on this team. McKinnon, he's just out there every once in a while for pass protection.
Yep.
It's Isaiah Pacheco's backfield. It is. CEH will come in and spell him every once in a while, but Pacheco's still getting, 60%, 50% snap share. It's his backfield. He looks great. Matched up against this defense. Oh, yeah.
Love it. In a dome. Inside.
Yeah. Cool. Nice, cool 72 degrees. Perfect weather. Yeah.
Drinking his water from a straw. Yeah.
All right. Well, those are the guys you want to smash, probably on your team and probably physically, sexually, emotionally as well. Who do you want to pass?
I'm going to pass, John. I'm going to pass on Jerry Jeudy is the first guy I'm looking to pass on. The reason being is, number one, they're playing the Jets. So whether it's Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy against Sauce, I don't want no part of it. Sauce is legit. He is absolutely fucking legit. And in addition to this, he had a perfect game plan, game script, the perfect opponent last week in that of the Bears, and didn't do anything. John, he led the team with 52 yards. That is it. He led the team with 52 yards on 3 catches with 5 targets on arguably the worst team in the NFL. So with them going and playing with the Jets, man, this is a guy that I'm not willing to trust. He was only put up, and if I'm looking at this correctly, he's only put up 20 points total combined in 3 weeks. Not for me this week. I'm sitting Jerry Jeudy's ass.
Yeah, I can't find a world where I can start him right now. I just can't. And when you're playing up against a defense like the Jets, no thanks, man. No thanks.
No thanks.
Yeah.
No thanks. And John, the next guy that I want to talk about actually had so much hype about him coming into this past week's game that Stevenson, they're saying, was going to be the secondary back. And it didn't end up working out. Zeke is the individual that I'm talking about, who I am passing on, I'm sitting on, and I am certainly quitting on this week. They're playing New Orleans. New Orleans defense is fucking good. They are very good. They're all over the place. The New England Patriots couldn't be in more turmoil than what they are. And actually, this might be the worst New England Patriots team I have ever seen personally. Like, we've only seen excellence from them for years, for decades. And now it's really coming back to earth. And so with Zeke, man, they ended up playing at Dallas, an insanely tough defense. And he was terrible. He only logged 22 of possible 55 snaps on offense. He only carried the ball 6 times for 16 yards and caught 2 passes of 3 targets. Terrible. And so he's only had, in the last 3 weeks alone, John, he's only had 13 points. Fantasy points and half PPR. For me, man, walking into a defense like that of New Orleans, again, with the turmoil that's happening, shit, Bailey Zappi might end up starting this week. Who the hell knows? And he's way more of a pure passer than that of Mac Jones. I am sitting Zeke this week. Not for me.
On that note, I mean, can I just throw in there that you may not have the luxury to sit him, but a soft sit in my mind is Ramondre Stevenson as well in the same game.
Definitely.
I'm struggling with Ramondre. I mean, it's getting to a point to where I'm looking for other options if I can afford it. I mean, he's getting the volume. 12, 15, 19, 14 attempts. He's just not doing anything with it. Ramondre's averaging less than 3 yards a carry, right?
It's terrible.
It's really, really bad. And this is typically a team that runs the ball very well. Yeah, I mean, both running backs for New England, if you can find other options, I highly suggest you do so. All right, who else, Frank?
John, I'm going to go back to the well here with the Denver Broncos. And I say that because, again, this matchup for me is just not great. They're playing the New York Jets. It is Marvin Mims. And he's actually been a darling in fantasy this year so far. He's number 31 receiver in half PPR, which is very good for a rookie. He's had, in the first few weeks, week 1, he had 1.9 points. Week 2, he had 21.3. Week 3, he had 15. In this past week against the Chicago Bears, he had 5. And so, again, when we're talking about the Jets, I just am not willing to put him in my flex or even in DFS. Maybe DFS if you can get him dirt cheap and you're like, I don't want to, put a lot of money on a defense or whatever it may be. Okay, that might make sense. But in terms of your actual team, unfortunately, this is not a week I'm willing to start Marvin Mims.
They can't get him on the field. He's a really, really good receiver.
He's very good.
A ton of talent. Very talented guy. They won't put him in. So I don't know what that's about. I don't know what the deal is with the coaching, but they're only getting him in there. He's in 25% of the snaps. I mean, he's not in the game long enough to produce for your fantasy team. So until he's a stash, definitely stash him, keep him, because this is a guy that second half,
definitely
I do think that he can emerge in the second half. I think he is very talented. You're going to have to give him some time. It's not his time yet. He's not ready.
And Russell Wilson.
Let that cook a little bit more. Leave it in the oven a little bit longer.
Love it. Russell Wilson, John, even said that this guy has no ceiling. His ceiling is impeccable. And so, to your point, could we see an Amon-Ra St. Brown? Could we see a Garrett Wilson back half? That's the type of player that this could be. And what happens if Jerry Jeudy gets traded? Apparently, he's still a guy that's on the trade block. If that happens, guys, Marvin Mims walks into the number 2 receiving spot, and now we're in serious gameplay. And so I love that call out. Please stash him, keep him on your team. Just probably not a start for me this week.
All right, sounds good.
John, the last sit, pass it, I don't want to start you, sir, is Mac Jones. Mac Daddy, mac and cheese. I don't want no part of your shit, baby. Jesus. You are dog poop. You have been terrible this year. The only he's that mac and cheese. He's not the good mac and cheese that you get at like Boston Market. You know how that shit's just so delicious. He's that mac and cheese that you get at like a cafeteria where it's got that like fluorescent color and it's been sitting there.
It's been sitting there for a while. It's all kind of mashed together, and you get like the lumps where some of it's not all the way cooked. You're like, what the fuck is this, man? That's the mac and cheese we've got right now.
Oh, dude. And when you said Boston Market, I could just see them scooping it out, and the cheese just like, it makes my mouth salivate.
It's so delicious. It's such an unnatural color. It's unbelievable. Nothing in nature is that color.
Nothing.
But it's delicious.
It's so good. But Mac Jones isn't. And so that's the problem. And guys, the matchup again is New Orleans. And Belichick came out and said that, hey, he's our starter again. I got to be honest with you, I don't believe a fucking word Belichick says. He might be a starter this week. I could end up seeing them start Bailey Zappi because, again, Bailey Zappi was the king at the in college football. He had like the most passing yards in the year he came out. It was insane. He was amazing. And I actually believe he could be a pretty damn good player. With that being said, what Mac Jones did last week against Dallas, well, I'll tell you, he ended up putting up negative 0.3 fantasy points. He had 12 completions on 21 passes, 150 yards, 2 interceptions, and no touchdowns. He was fucking bad. And so for me, man, I want no part of him. Don't stream him. Don't start him in a 2-quarterback league. This is not the matchup. Pause on that of Mac Jones.
Throw that mac and cheese out this week. Throw it out.
Throw it out.
It's gross. It's no good. It's no good. All right, man. I love it. I love these. We every week I look back and I go, all right, which ones did we nail? Which ones did we? Pretty goddamn good, man. I mean, really good job so far this year on nailing these starts
and John, actually, well, let's call that out for a quick second. So with some of the starts, guys, we said Gabe Davis, we said Adam Thielen, we said Cortland Sutton, we said Tutu Atwell last week, and they did very well, guys. I mean, Javonte Williams, we said start him up. and unfortunately got hurt. Tank Dell, we thought it was going to be great. I'll tell you what, it ended up being Nico Collins' day, but he's still a very optimal type of player. And then from the sits, guys, we told you to sit Joshua Kelly. We told you to sit Kadarius Toney. And yes, of course, Deshaun Watson doesn't play. So then the Browns look a hell of a lot different. Defense is on the field majority of the time. And we told you to sit the running backs, which I still abide by that. None of them scored a touchdown. And then that of Lamar Jackson, or maybe one of them did at the last one. I can't remember. I stopped watching after it was such a shit show. And then Lamar Jackson, we told you to sit him, and he ended up being an MVP. So I'll tell you what, I'll take 3 out of 4 there. And I'll take damn near, 4 out of 6 guys. Listen up. We're here for you. Listen to these starts and sits.
I knew as soon as you said to sit Lamar Jackson, I said, God damn it. Now he's going to go ape shit. He's going to run for 2. He's going to throw for 2. Sure as shit. That's exactly what he did. Well, cheers to you, Frankie. Good luck to you in week 5. Don't forget, guys, we do have buys this week. We've got the Browns on a bye, the Chargers on a bye, the Buccaneers on a bye, and Seattle Seahawks on a bye.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right. So be smart. Play very, very smart this week. It's with the injuries and the bye weeks. Every week is going to be just a little scary for you. All right, don't forget to follow us on social media, on Instagram at Frankly Fantasy Football. And I know you're listening. That's a majority of our audience is listening on the podcast. Anywhere you can find podcasts. Why don't you guys, just for shits and giggles, move over to YouTube and subscribe to that as well? You can still listen. I'm not going to stop you, but why don't you subscribe, hit the notification bell, help us, help the podcast out. How about that? Okay, we try to help you every week. Help us out. All you got to do is subscribe. You push one button. We love you all. Frankie, any parting words, baby?
Guys, keep the questions coming, right? So Eric, huge shout out to you, brother, on YouTube. You continue to listen week in and week out. You continue to ask great questions. Guys, we don't know Eric, but Eric, we believe in you. We love you. We love the trade questions. We love the starts and sits. Do not be afraid to send us these questions, and we're answering them live time. Give us a few minutes and we're firing them back. So if you have any questions with these bye weeks, or you want to know, hey man, would you rather? Shit, let us know. We'll give you some feedback, and we want you to win, guys. So good luck on week 5 and continue being absolutely incredible. And Weller, we love you. Give us a little bit of love back, right? Would you? Shout out.
Would for deserve be the exclusive, just saying. Eric on YouTube, may the fantasy gods smile upon you.